Dear friends, participants of this roundtable that tries to put together the rights to water and sanitation, food and housing. It's an important discussion, and this cross-cutting view can be a powerful way to look at these rights. The human rights to water and sanitation can be seen through a number of perspectives. We can look at the rights to water and sanitation through a legal perspective. In this way, we would see in one side duty bearers and the other side rights holders. This is an interesting way to look at these rights because we can clearly see the obligations around these rights, who is responsible, the role of the state, the role of the governments, the role of the providers, and also the role of those organizations that work with international corporations, among others, duty bearers. At the other side, we can see the main parts of the population that needs more attention from these duty bearers. We will look at the most vulnerable groups of the population that would need a close attention in order to have an adequate access to good services for water and sanitation. Another way to look at these rights is to see the normative contents of the rights. In this way, we will look at how the services are delivered. In this way, we will see the dimensions of quality, availability, affordability, accessibility, privacy, dignity, among other characteristics of the delivery of water and sanitation services. It's also an important perspective to look at these rights, because in this way we can frame how the services are delivered, the services are provided, and then we should look at delivering an adequate solution regarding all these aspects. I would emphasize in this second way to look at the services the dimension of affordability that is usually a neglected dimension, and it's very important to ensure that people with low economic capacity will not be excluded from the services because of its insufficient capacity. A third way to look at the services is based on the broader human rights principles, and in this case we will try to look on how the service is delivered based on principles like equality and non-discrimination, participation, the right to participation, accountability and transparency, progressive realization and the principle of non-retrogression, and also extraterritorial obligations. These are principles that encompass all rights, all human rights, and to me they are very, very key to ensure that people that are the most vulnerable part of the population will receive adequate services, among other ways to look on how policies, plans, provision are organized. Drawing especially on the first principle of equality and non-discrimination, through this lens we will look not only to the conventional urbanization of the cities or the conventional way the rural areas are organized, but we will see mainly those part of the population that usually are not included in the plans and policies and the way the services are delivered. We look at slums, we look at homeless, prisoners, people in detention centers, migrants, refugee camps, and so on and so forth. We need to prioritize the access to the services of this part of the population, because in other way we'll never meet the human rights to water and sanitation. I think that the SDGs framework provides a powerful way to think and act differently on the water and sanitation provision. This will apply to the traditional providers, but also will apply to those organizations that have interventions on the field, for instance NGOs that have programs in poor countries delivering services, working together with social organizations, working together with governments. The human rights to water and sanitation is the only economic, social and cultural right explicitly mentioned in the document that introduces the Sustainable Development Goals. Additionally, the targets related to the Goal 6, that is the goal dedicated to water, are clearly targets that includes the principles, the contents of the human rights. We are talking of not anymore of halving the proportion of the population without access to water and sanitation, but to give this access to all in a universal way, looking at the needs of women and girls, and so on and so forth. The rights to water and sanitation under the SDGs is a powerful way to look in a cross-cutting perspective to the other rights, to the other goals, to the other targets included in the SDGs, mainly the right to food and the right to housing, that it's subject of this roundtable. I would also mention the aim of ending poverty, that is a cross-cutting also issue under the SDGs, and the goal 10, that it's a goal devoted to reduce inequalities among countries and inside each country. So, summarizing, I think that the human rights to water and sanitation can be a very important and should be a very important way to look differently to the service provision, looking at the needs of the most vulnerable parts of the population, and if we do well in the new era, in the new period of the SDGs, including these parts of the populations and reducing the gaps between the most vulnerable and the less vulnerable parts of the population, the water and sanitation sector will make a very important contribution to the achieving of all the SDGs and give an important contribution to the ending of poverty and the reduction of inequalities. So, I wish you have a very good roundtable, and the issue of the human rights, water and sanitation can be an inspiration for this discussion and for the following activities that all the organizations that is participating today will follow from now. Thank you, goodbye.